curses, right? Can you demonstrate the curses of Deuteronomy 28 that are presently affecting the Ashkenazi Jews?
Sure. Right now, to this day, we are the subject of hate crimes on a higher level, religious hate crimes than anyone else in America. Very sadly, many times at the hands of African Americans, the levels of anti-Semitism worldwide are as high as they were before the Holocaust. Jews have had to leave France. Jews have had to leave Russia. These are Ashkenazi Jews, and for the most part, they've had to leave England. Right now, within Israel, Israel is surrounded by hostile enemies 24/7, and there's constant attack. So we've suffered these things. Now, you and I would agree that the curses don't have to apply to every single person at every single time. You quoted Hosea 1, for example, about all the blessing that's being experienced. And you've elsewhere referred to say, Judah, everyone will praise Judah. So look at how everyone looks to African Americans, etc. But by and large, if you want to look at a people who has suffered over the centuries around the world, watch Fiddler on the Roof. That's been life for Ashkenazi Jews for centuries, persecuted, hated, impoverished. So yes, there are good things that happen in our midst, just like good things in African American, Hispanic midst. But yeah, we've suffered terribly and continue to.
Okay, so I don't know if you understand my question, Dr. Brown. I said you affirm Jews are under the curses. Can you demonstrate the curses of Deuteronomy 28 that are presently affecting the Ashkenazi Jews? That does not mean bad things happening to them. I need to know the verse that corresponds to what you're describing in Deuteronomy 28.
Sure. Let me pull up the text and we'll start going through verse after verse. And by the way, again, you said that some of these happened historically. Absolutely agree. Much of it has happened historically. For example, being sold in slavery back to Egypt, that happened historically. I'm not the one who brought up the contemporary argument about that. That's been brought up to say, well, that it refers to African Americans sold into American slavery. So obviously you reject that. So let's just go back. It doesn't have to be to this moment. Let's go back to what happened in the Holocaust, recent history. Cursed shall you be in the city, cursed shall you be in the country. Wherever you were as a Jew, you were persecuted as a Jew. Cursed shall be your basket, your kneading bowl. Jews were put under starvation diets in the concentration camps and in the ghettos. Hundreds of ghettos where they were deprived. Cursed shall be the issue of the room, the produce of your soul, the calving of your herd, the lambing of your flock. Jewish babies were thrown into the fire alive just because they were Jews. Cursed shall be your comings, cursed shall be your goings. This was the circumstance for a period of intense years. The pogroms in Russia, where Jewish communities were decimated, the Lord will let loose against you calamity, panic, frustration, all the enterprises you undertake. All these things and more happened at a horrific level in the Holocaust. That's far more recent than the slave trade. The fact is,
Dr. Brown, I asked you very, very explicitly, presently, like you mentioned starving in the ghetto, like blacks and Hispanics are starving in the ghetto as we speak. So I asked you very specifically, presently, can you demonstrate what curses of Deuteronomy 28, the Ashkenazi Jews presently are under? Because you said the Jews are presently under curses. Thank you.
Yeah, so let me come back to this. Barack Obama was president of the United States. There are Black Americans who are leading citizens in our country.
Dr. Brown,
can I please speak?
He's Kenyan. He's Kenyan. He's not a descendant of slaves, just for the record.
Okay, so there are plenty of prominent African Americans that would go back, according to you, to Judah.
This doesn't answer my question.
Let me speak. You are not all presently under a curse. So I pointed to Jews in France right now who are persecuted, who are hated, who are being killed. Jews in England, rising tide of anti-Semitism. They're being harassed. They're being beaten. They're being attacked. It's been a history in Russia. So these things are currently happening. But again, you said during the debate that this does not have to be for all people present today. You want to have it both ways. You want to talk about all the accomplishments, how many good things are happening. Mexicans in Mexico right now are not suffering all these curses. And I go on, Central Americans in Central America are not suffering all these curses. So you've got to be consistent in your application.
Dr. Brown, for the record, I just asked you to identify a curse that is presently affecting the Ashkenazi Jews. I didn't say all of them had to. Notice that you didn't demonstrate any. So now I move on. You affirm that there are both Black and Hispanic Jews. Can you demonstrate the curses of Deuteronomy 28 that the Black and Hispanic Jews are currently affected by?
Hispanic Jews currently under these types of curses, not aware in particular at the moment, or Black Jews specifically under these curses. For example, the Lord will make pestilence cling to you. until he has put an end to you in the land that you are entering to possess. The Lord will strike you with consumption, fever, and inflammation, with scorching heat and drought, with blight and mildew. They shall have. That's not happening to Hispanic Jews or Black Jews or the people on the chart specifically. These are things that have happened in history. That's the whole point. They've happened in history. And if, in fact, the people on the chart, it's accurate what you're saying, then they're not scant, they're not few. They have grown and grown and grown, which would be a sign of the blessing, which would mean that we're all back in the land if we were blessed. So all these Israelites should be back in the land now, if what you're saying is true, because you're experiencing this massive blessing of hundreds of millions of people. Again, it's the massive inconsistency. You want to take a verse from here, turn it around, a verse from there, turn it around, and then hold me to a completely different standard. All I'm asking is you to be consistent.
Consistency. Funny you say that. Yesterday on your show, you said there will be no future exiles for Israel, but in your commentary on both Jeremiah 23 and Jeremiah 30, you refer to a collective deliverance from oppression for both kingdoms by the Messiah in the last days to bring them back home. How can that be true and the Ashkenazim be Israelites?
Well, very simple. We're not all back in the land. I absolutely said there's not going to be a future exile from the land, all the Jews kicked out. I hold to that. Nothing I said in my commentary. I wrote the commentary. Thank you for reading it. I'm quite familiar with what I said. When the Messiah returns, there will still be exiles in different parts of the world. Ashkenazi Jews, Sephardi Jews, Lemba Jews, and it could be you. I don't know your background or history. That may still not be back in the land. So those that are still outside the land will be brought back. I'm really surprised by the question, actually.
Okay. Maybe I misunderstood you. Now, are Edomites from the Levant?
Sure.
Were Edomites converted to Judaism?
There was a small group there. There was, Herod was one of them. There were some Edomites who were forcibly converted. Yeah.
Right. So would that mean that that there could be a portion of Edomites that would have DNA, linguistic, and traditional evidence that could link them to being Jews, similar to you guys?
No, linguistically, no, because Edomite would have been a different dialect, like Moabite was a different dialect, etc. So it was a different Semitic dialect than Hebrew. That's number one. Number two, the Edomites that became part of the Jewish people, this was before the time of Jesus. So if you have legitimate Israelite blood, that could go back to you. All right. So but you've got this little trickle that came in. There is zero way to connect me back to Edom other than rhetoric and race baiting and things like that, or even to make him into a white man, to be candid. Zero whatsoever. So
there's zero way to connect you back to Edom, who lived just south of Israel, and then who a portion of them converted into Judaism and at least spoke a Semitic dialect.
Any more than to connect Edom to you. Maybe there's the connection there to you. Perhaps you're an Edomite.
What tribes are the Black and Hispanic Jews from?
We don't know. It's virtually impossible to trace tribal lineage. There's some that have claimed that there's a way to trace back some Judeans to a Davidic root. The most certain thing we can do is with priestly peoples. So Ashkenazi and Sephardi and Mizrahi and Lemba priests do have a common ancestry that goes back about 3,000 years. Apparently to Aaron in the Middle East, but there's no way to trace the other tribes. There are some Jews, for example, Mizrahi Jews who've lived continuously in Iraq or Iran until 1948 that could trace things back pretty well, and they may have some family traditions, etc. But there's no way, there's no genetic way to put anyone in any particular tribe. That's one of the fundamental massive differences that I have with your chart, sir.
Okay. So when did the 430-year judgment of Ezekiel 4 happen to the Ashkenazi Jews?
Yeah, so it looks like the last question here. I'll try to get my answer in. You're misreading it. It's saying that there are 430 days that Ezekiel is to lay on aside because of the 430 years of sin of the northern kingdom. So for every year of sin of the northern kingdom leading up to that time, he is to lay on one side. And then for the sin of Judah, for those years leading up to that, those immediate years leading up to it of such terrible sin, he's to lay on his other side. It's not a prophecy about future judgment coming. Rather, he is commemorating